BarrioLoveOldies.com. Órale.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Miss Crystal Marie from Barrio Love Oldies, and we're back here on the Barrio Love Oldie podcast, episode number 28, with none other than my good friend. I'm super excited to have him on, Casper of KDVS Radio and founder of Capital City Records. Welcome to our podcast. I'm super excited and honored to have you here with us, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's so awesome to be here with Joy, coming from KDVS.org, 90.3 FM, in the heart of the University of Davis, California, about 20 minutes west of Sacramento. And you have had the privilege of being on the radio with me as a co-host for a while, back before COVID. And that was awesome to have you on the show with me. And also, I'm the co-founder of Capital City Records, along with Michael Heda. Now we have Tommy Sanchez with us at Capital City Records, and he's from Loyalty Record Club. So some of you listeners might recognize him from being from one of the previous interviews. I think.
Yeah, we just had him on.
I think episode 27, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, we just had him on. It's super dope. He's had like so much to talk about. I was like, man, you're like a so full of like knowledge. Like if there's something that I want to know, I could probably call him and be like, he even said he knew about stocks. I'm like, okay.
Oh no, he's smart. He's very, very, very good
educated.
He knows how to. That's why I brought him on. He's a money man. So we need a smart money man, and Tommy's the guy. And he's a good person. He's a very good person. Genuine.
That's so dope. I loved having him on, and definitely this interview is about you and all that you have accomplished, and we're super excited to get to know you personally. I think, yes, you're right. You asked me to help you, be co-host on your radio station.
Yes.
But I'm honored to hear more details about your life and get the nitty gritty. And that's what this podcast is all about. Barrio Love Oldie podcast is I wanna get an inside look on who you are as a person, and not something that could just be Googled, basic information. I want to know what's beyond Google search or AI search, and that's only details that we could get from our guests. So I'm super excited to hear all about your story. So let's go ahead and start. Where were you born and raised?
Okay, so I was born in Stockton, California, many years ago, almost 55 years ago. It'll be 55 years, November 21st.
Okay.
So I'm not ashamed to give my birth date and all that, because I feel it a big blessing to still be here and to still be able to enjoy all the things I get, to be blessed with. So yes, Stockton, California, 55 years ago almost. And as a child, as a baby, let's say that baby and a toddler, my parents were migrant farm workers. So we worked, they worked in the Stockton area for a while. They worked in the Lodi area for a while. They've worked in Salinas for a while. And I remember my earliest childhood memories are of Salinas. And then there we moved to Lodi, and I went to kindergarten here in Lodi. I'm in Lodi right now. And so from there, my parents were fortunate to get into the low-income housing program that was happening all over the place, where, especially I remember in California, it gave a lot of minority folks a chance to become homeowners. And so they bought a home in a small city of Galt, which is in Sacramento County. And it's an interesting community because it's in the 209 area code phone-wise, but Sacramento County. And the town itself was right on the county line of San Joaquin County and Sacramento County. So culturally, it was more like San Joaquin County because I think more people were close to Lodi, Campo, Stockton, like my parents,
Yeah.
culturally, and then we had more, more so than Sacramento, right? So whenever we went to Sacramento, though, it was a treat, and it was like a big city to us, because we were pretty much in a bubble growing up in Galt. So
Yeah.
that's where I spent first grade to high school, 12th grade, graduated from Galt High School in 1987. And at the young age of 17, I ended up, going on into the Marine Corps. But I went far ahead. I jumped too far ahead. I know you want to know what we listened to, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I want to know what kind of music, what was your
Yes.
environment like?
So what was it like? Okay.
Yeah.
Musically, growing up, and also culturally, growing up in Galt, well, of course, my first two musical influences were my parents. Okay, my father and my mother. My mother being more culturally a Chicana. She was English speaking, Mexican American, who went to school in Lodi. My father was more the Paisa. Came from Mexico, straight from Mexicali, which he called Chicali.
Yeah.
And he landed in Stockton at the age of 14
Wow.
by himself and worked in the labor camps. And so culturally, musically, I was into what my dad was into and what my mom was into. My dad loved those oldies but goodies, like the Art Love oldies, right?
Yeah.
He liked listening to like Rock Around the Clock, Where Are You, Little Star, Where Are You? Like those kind of oldies, Duke of Earl, 1,000 Miles Away. Those were oldies that I listened to as a child, right?
Yeah.
And the Beatles. My dad was a huge Beatles fanatic. Listened to the Beatles all the time on 8-tracks. So we had 8 tracks, and I remember cruising around with my dad as a little boy, and he had a real nice root beer brown Chevy truck, and he had long hair like the Beatles, right? And the little glasses and the beard. And we'd be listening to the Beatles, and we'd be listening to those golden oldies that I was telling you about, those Dick Clark type oldies, you know what I mean? And then, excuse me, then my mom was more Rolling Stones, Marvin Gaye, Al Green. And usually when my mom was playing music, it was on a Sunday with all the windows open, and it was like a deep clean in the house. And we had one of those big console stereo units that had like, you lifted open the top. It was a big wooden structure, and you had the turntable, it had the 8-track player, and it had the radio. And so my mom would have like a Marvin Gaye 8-track, and she'd be playing it full volume. Like I said, windows open, and she'd be cleaning. And I was just a little kid playing, but I could hear the Marvin Gaye music in the background. And so, that was my earliest influences coming from them. Motown, Beatles, and the golden oldies. That's what I do remember.
That's so awesome. When do you feel like that you got introduced to more like the deeper soul than what you grew up listening to in your home?
Well, okay, so before listening to, say, my own soul music, growing up where I grew up, the low-income housing tracts, there were families that had moved in from Stockton, from Sacramento, from San Jose, from Los Angeles, and so it was a small little Chicano and Mexicano, because not every Mexicano identifies as Chicano. So there were from all over, different parts, different regions, because this was back then a brand new neighborhood. Okay, and so I do remember a family that was from San Jose, and they would bring cassettes that they got from the flea market, and we had this big boom box, and we'd be listening to like Sonny Osuna, and at the time, It's Okay, Smile Now, Cry Later.
Yeah.
We'd be listening to those types of oldies, basically East Side Stories, right?
Yeah.
East Side Stories and other cassettes that were just with recordings on them. A lot of more generic oldies cassettes, and we'd be listening to those. But I really, really didn't get into the type of music that I got into until later, because I have to explain to you my coming of age music, like when the music that I connected with as a teenager, because remember, I've been around a while. So the music that I connected with was when I was in 7th, 8th grade, somewhere like that. I got introduced to like punk rock and new wave music, and I fell in love with like artists like The Clash, Dead Kennedys, music like by the Ramones, David Bowie, The Cure, The Smiths, music of that nature. And I sought that music out myself on vinyl, and I would go to record stores with my buddy Eddie Adul, who's a DJ right now in Sacramento still to this day, very well known. And so he's a club DJ. And so we would go out and look for records. And, it was kind of neat because I got to share this part. Growing up in Galt at the time, it was like, I don't know if some of you remember the movie Footloose. It was not very friendly toward people who thought outside the box. You had to kind of, you couldn't rock the boat. So like if you were a Chicano, Mexicano, you were kind of expected to listen to a certain type of music. And if you were a white kid, you were expected to listen to a certain type of music. Mm-hmm. And if you were of another nationality, because we didn't have very many others, then you were also probably expected to listen to a certain type of music.
Yeah. So
if you thought outside the box, people would kind of peck at you and be like, what are you listening to? What are you doing? Right? And so when I listened to that type of music, it was almost like an instant ridicule, and people would peck at you and go, "What are you listening to that kind of music? Nobody likes that kind of music." And why are you? Because then I also dressed the part. So along with listening to new wave music from the '80s, you dress the part. You spike your hair up and you dress kind of funky, right? And so we caught we caught. There's words I'm trying to not use. We caught people bullying and stuff like that, right? So get this, I was into that kind of music, and my buddy Eddie Dole's mom, she saw that we're small town kids, and she would take us to the Bay Area and expose us to a bigger like more record stores, more clothing stores, and kind of like we would be like, wow, this is really cool. And then we'd go to Sacramento too, and go to record shops and clothing shops and stuff like that. And so one thing that really helped me was my cousins from East LA. They started coming up because they were high schoolers and are all older than me. 3 of them, they came up, and these dudes were dressed down and they listened to really cool music. And so those were my influences, where I was like, man, these small town guys, they don't know nothing. And so my cousins would tell me to, like, don't pay attention to that. Listen to what you want to listen to, and listen, and dress how you want to dress, and express yourself artistically the way you want to. And so I got into all kinds of other music and all kinds of other fashion, which was really big in East LA at the time in the 1980s, was high energy disco music. And it was a big scene, lots of house parties, lots of teenage clubs were playing that kind of music, and then of course 21 and over clubs were playing it. But I really got it. That was a form of kind of like rare music, or music that wasn't so popular or common. So again, me and Eddie Adul, as we were coming of age as young teenagers, we were looking for these records, these disco records that were we were finding on mixtapes coming to us from East LA. And so we would be like, all right, let's get this record, let's get that record. And so we were, like I said, we were into the vinyl thing then. We were into music that wasn't so commonly played, but it wasn't necessarily oldies just yet. It really wasn't oldies for me until I was a young man. I told you I joined the Marines at the tender age of 17, and I ended up in Southern California. And so I started hanging out at a place called Norwalk Records. And I know you've heard of Norwalk Records. I know a lot of listeners have heard of Norwalk Records. And so I would go, and that's where the oldies just boom. You know, you would get these, a lot of them were tapes, a lot of them were records. And but they weren't like super, super rare. You know what I mean? Like what we consider rare now, you know.
Yeah.
There were, to me then, rare was like Joe Bataan, okay, Rafi Pagan, okay. Those were artists that weren't so, like, to me, I guess they were you had to kind of dig, I guess, a little deeper, so to speak, is what I was thinking. And so there was I have this record, it's right behind me. It's called Chicanos Explode in Concert. I have the vinyl album. Sorry, I don't know if you can see me pointing at it, but that album right there was initially released as a CD, a compilation CD, and I had that when I was a young man living in I'd go to Norwalk Records. I was living in Orange County. That CD had some, like, they had Benitez and Nebula on it. It had I'm so sad. That song right there.
One of my favorites.
Oh man, that song was like right. And so those songs to me right there were the ones that kind of, got me going, hey, there's a deeper side of soul, right? Yeah. Than the music that we're all, exposed to, like, say, Art Laboe oldies or Huggy Boy oldies, because a lot of folks that are hip to Art Laboe aren't necessarily hip to Huggy Boy unless you've lived in Southern California or, have kind of done your own research. But yeah, so that was my exposure, if you will, to the rare oldies, living in Southern California. At a young age, Norwalk Records. If it wasn't for Norwalk, yeah, that was a spot back then. I'm talking about 1990, 91, 92, those years right there.
I want to go back to talking about your dad a little bit, because I know you said that he's from Mexicali. Well, my father's from Mexicali. That's where they were at.
Going back to my childhood, in reference to my dad, okay, so we're talking music, right?
Yeah.
And the effects of it. Let's say he was from Mexicali, Pueblo Nuevo, always referred to. He never, I don't think he ever really even called it Mexicali. It was always Chicali, right?
Chicali, yeah.
Right? My dad would play music from Mexicali and Tijuana, because he was born in Tijuana but raised in Mexicali, and so he spent a lot of time, along those border cities, right?
Yeah.
Tijuana, Mexicali. And back in the 1960s and 70s, there was a big music movement that came out of that area with groups like Los Muecas, Los Freddies, Los Solitarios, Los Zorros. There were a lot of groups that were putting out some great music, and a lot of them had music that was kind of like almost like well, they weren't Spanish, but they almost sounded like English oldies. They were sad songs, kind of along the lines of like psychedelic and doo-wop, right?
Yeah.
And so he would be playing a lot of these songs, and I remember these. He would be drinking at the table with my uncles or his close friends, and they all longed for home, because my dad pretty much surrounded himself with friends that were from his hometown. They all came to California as young men or as boys even, to work, to seek a better life. And so they were all homesick, because I remember them, talking and just reminiscing and remembering where they came from. And in the background, it would be like Los Muecas, Indita Mia, Silvia, or Los Freddies, Déjenme Llorar. I mean, sad love songs, and so that would be playing in the background. And what's funny though is when as a kid, it didn't bother me, but as a teenager, I would be like, Dad, why are you listening to that music? I want to hear this, I want to hear that, right? And he would be like, cállate, cabrón. Un día te va a gustar esa música, right? And one day you're gonna like that music. And sure enough, I got Los Muecas, Los Freddies, Los Solitarios, Opson, but they're not from the border. They were from Sonora, right? A neighboring state. And so he would, play that music. And now I saw it. I have it in my collection now, those types of songs. And, they take me back. It's funny how music works. It takes you back to those warm and fuzzy places in your memory bank, So those were, as far as my dad. So it'd be like the Beatles, of course, like I mentioned, the those oldies, those golden oldies, that were super popular, and then of course the Mexican music. He sometimes listened to the more traditional Mexican music, like Ramon Ayala and Vicente Fernandez, stuff like that. But it wasn't that. No, the ones that really hit him were those ones I just mentioned. Those were really, really daggers. Homesick music. So
yeah.
I
remember just hearing a lot of like East Side Story, and like a lot of my dad's friends were like from Chicali, like a lot of migrant kids that migrated here with their parents, and they would all like be listening to like oldies, like East Side Story, the Art LeBeaux, like all that stuff. And I would be like, Dad, like he had a lot of like older stuff, like more deeper soul, but he would always go back to like the East Side.
Let me tell you, when I was buying them, okay, because I was buying those volumes 1992, 91, 92, okay, in Norwalk Records. I was buying them for $6.99. I still got the price tags on them. $6.99 at Norwalk. And they were always there. They were like, you could always count on those East Side Stories being there,
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to mention too, what was really cool about Norwalk Records, and I don't know if anyone had mentioned this in any of the interviews, but they were notoriously known for having little bootleg 45s. Some people are probably laughing that are listening. And maybe even a few LPs, right? But the 45s, they would have like, I don't know, I can't remember the names of some of them, but they were always like a solid color, like a solid green or a solid red. And they would have like El Chicano, Sabor a Mi on a 45, or, like Sad Girl, the Midnighters, because I got some of these. I really love Sharp, right? Dee Sharp. Yeah, Dee Sharp. Yeah, I really love you, right? So a lot of those 45, you would get them for like 3 of them for like $10, right? Or who knows, right? But I remember more or less 3 for about $10, and you would buy them, and nobody really tripped on the fact that they were bootlegs, right? Because let me tell you why. Because I'm taking you back to an era when it was records, that's what it was. You know what I mean? And it was, everyone had records. Everyone, okay? And it wasn't like a special thing. Because if you wanted to listen to music, it was go get records,
Yeah.
And so DJs needed, like songs like for quinces, bodas, you know what I mean? Big parties, and all throughout LA and the Southland. So, it was competitive. And, you had, people would probably say, hey, we want to hear this one, we want to hear that one, we want to hear this one. And so a place like Norwalk had those records in abundance. So you could get those records, no problem. And go DJ parties. It wasn't so that collectors can have them or people can spin them. That's probably debatable, but in my opinion, it was more catering to DJs throughout East LA, West LA, South LA, onto the Inland Empire, south to, Orange County, where I was at. But but yeah, so it was more for DJs, they had a lot of cassettes too, like with compilation cassettes, and they weren't necessarily um, um, like with giving anyone any kind of credit or whatever, like you know what I mean, like it wasn't like like I'm just gonna make up a name like Vato Joe's, Volume 1, or it was nothing like that. It was just like a cassette with a bunch of oldies on it, or a bunch of old school funk, but it wasn't even called old school at the time because it was the school, right?
The school.
Yeah. So you could get a cassette with like a bunch of funk songs on it, party music.
Yeah.
Get them, and there you go. My cousins sometimes, when I was a young man living, in Orange County, hanging out with my cousins in East LA, they would say, "Hey, we're gonna go party this weekend. Hey, I'm gonna go to Norwalk and grab me some cassettes for the weekend." And some of them were mixed already, pre-mixed.
Wow.
I remember there was one that he used to always refer to like Method number 1, Method number 2, and there were some cool like party disco mixed cassettes. And then we go over there, grab some tapes, boom, and we're gone. And we had music for the weekend, So it was cool, like that at the time. We're talking about like I said, the early 1990s, when records, cassettes, and CDs were becoming more and more popular. But here's the thing: back in the day, you had to have CDs weren't cheap when they first came out. So, but then they somehow, some way, they became more marketable, and they became more widely distributed, and then records started declining.
Yeah.
And we went through a period where records were almost wiped out. A lot of companies, a lot of pressing plants were closing. A lot of companies weren't even releasing artists on vinyl anymore. They weren't offering it. It was CD and maybe cassette, but CD for sure. And I want to say that during the mid 1990s to about the early 2000s, vinyl was almost wiped out. The vinyl industry, when I say vinyl, was wiped out or almost wiped out. So,
yeah.
I want to say at the time, you had to go buy old records. There were a lot of old record stores throughout, Southern California, a bunch of old record stores. And sometimes you would see a new record come in. It was more like a novelty almost, because I always remember there was this one record store in Tustin, right just south of San Red Hill, okay? And it was near I-5. And so I would go to this record store, and I remember seeing the new Red Hot Chili Peppers album came out. And then there was, people were like, "Whoa, look at that." Like those weren't really made too common, And there was some hip hop. I want to say hip hop was putting out some on record, because I bought some. Like Ice Cube, and we're talking in the 90s, right? Ice Cube, Warren G, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, all those big West Coast LA hip hop stuff. NWA, and no, not really. It was more Dr. Dre when he had left NWA. So I was buying those kind of records. Cypress Hill. And I have them. I still have all those records. So some people don't even know me as a DJ or a collector that has those records, but I do. DJ Quick, I have all those, right? So I was buying those top 10 records. Now it just came to me. Top 10 records. So somebody that want to Google that or whatever, or remember it back in the day. Red Hill Avenue in Tustin. And so I would go over there and buy records. But mostly at the time I was buying used records, because they were hella cheap, really cheap to buy those records. And so now, that's pretty much what I was doing as far as buying records. I've always been buying records. That's why, I can just...
So did that happen after you came back from where you were stationed at? Like when you came back, or...
Okay, so I was stationed right there in Orange County. So that's why I'm living there. And then my ex-wife and I, we had 2 children that were born there. One of them was born in South Orange County, and the other one was born in Santa Ana, on Bristol, right there, right in the heart of the barrio. And so my daughter, she was born right there in Santa Ana. And so and we used to live in on Newport and McFadden, which is basically Santa Ana, but the address was a Tustin address, but everybody there was from Santa Ana. It was a lot of homies and homegirls that were living right there near Pasadena. Like I said, Newport. I was in these apartments right there called the Castilian Apartments.
Okay.
And there was a lot of us. It was cool because it was almost everybody there was just in their early 20s with little babies, and all of them, almost everybody was from Santa Ana that lived in those apartments.
Nice.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, it was cool. So I got to go to a lot of Santa Ana parties, met some cool Santa Ana people, families. And
How long did you live there for?
About 8 years.
Okay.
8 years. Yeah. So it wasn't until the mid to late 90s that my ex and I moved our kids to Sacramento to Citrus Heights.
Okay.
And we lived there for a very brief period. It was brief, like about a year. And then what we did is, and then I was buying records heavily. During that year, I was buying records at, back then it was a place called Esoteric Records, Sacramento, on Broadway. And then Tower Records. Oh my God, Tower Records on Broadway. So those were my two favorites, Tower and Esoteric. And then
what do you thinking like got you into collecting like records? Like what sparked that in you to just be like,
I just love music. I do,
like you just had to have the actual like record?
But yeah. So what's funny about me, and my kids call me a hoarder, okay? Because they go, Dad, you're a hoarder, right? And I think what it is okay, now this is just aside from having the music, okay? This is just, like the, let me grab it. So just like this right here, this record right here, Peligro Brass. What it is maybe not so much now because I'm so into, records, but what I think is early on is I was just collecting them because I give life to them. Does that make sense? Like almost like I gotta take care of it. I give. I think what some people have said is there's certain objects that some people collect, whatever it is. It could be, you could collect shot glasses, you could collect. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, silver spoons, whatever it is you collect, hats, whatever, right? Sometimes people give life to those objects, items, right? And they won't let them go, right? And so that's kind of, I think I fall in that category of I give life to some of these items. I've had some of these records with me still to this day since when we started this conversation. And I told you I've had records, new wave records, punk rock records from 7th grade, 8th grade that I started buying on my own with money I would make on my own. I've been, washing dishes at a restaurant, mowing people's yards, whatever, however I got money, right? As a kid, I would go buy records. And so I think I won't let go of them because I've had, like I say, some of them, I'm going to be 55. And some of these records I've had for over 40 years,
Yeah.
And I'll go, man, that's me and this record, man. We've seen some parties. We did some things. You know what I mean? I DJ, like, I'll give you an example, like freestyle records or electro records, disco records I was telling you about. We rocked parties. We rocked parties, mixing and scratching and all that, right? And I still have those records. And sometimes when I'm, doing a party or something, I'll let people know, like, this record right here was the same record we were spinning back when we were teenagers.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? And so that's why I say, I go, man, I give life to some of these objects and I just won't let them go. So,
yeah.
And when I say that, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do with vinyl, with records, and some people may relate, because I started going to these record shows, right? I got invited, hey, come to record shows. You have so many records, you can sell some of these records, make some money. And that's the truth. I can make plenty of money for a long time. I can open a record store if I wanted to. And so I set up a table and I started selling records. And this was a few years ago. It's a funny story. So I'm selling it. I go, because this is why. Let me tell you. This is when I was getting into the rare soul, rare funk, right? Like I was pretty focused because I was meeting people that was boom, straight up funkeros, and I was meeting people boom, straight up soleros, and then I was just like really, just getting into the mix with them and going and buying these records and seeking them out. And so I felt at some point I got this crazy thought, that you know what, maybe I should let certain genres go. Okay, maybe I'll let some of my classic rock records go. Maybe I'll let some of those old punk rock new wave records go. Maybe I'll let some of these, other genres go. And I remember telling a buddy of mine that owns a record shop, Ben Johnson, he owns Delta Breeze Records, Sacramento. And I go, and he would say, well, what are you going to just kind of, just kind of focusing on certain genres? I go, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I just want to be like, Mr. Funkero over here, And so I was like, he's like, oh, well, okay, that's what you want to do, then go for it, So I entered this record fairs in Davis, and I'm telling you, my table I had some good records that were just flying, right? And people were like, dang, man, what's this guy selling? I was selling like Pink Floyd, The Wall, and I had multiple copies of Led Zeppelin records because I had the Clash records. I had Ozzy Osbourne records. I had hip hop records because hip hop was part of the stash of records. I'd go, I can let some of these go too. So I was letting like DJ Quick records go, Cypress Hill records go. I was letting records go. I was selling them, but I was selling Warren G. Still remember to this day. I let the Warren G record go, the album with Regulate on it, right? And then I had seller's remorse after that for a long time because I still remember the records I let go. I don't remember all my damn records. It's funny, because I'm looking around right now at records, and I'm like, you know what? Sometimes I'll buy a record and not know I already have it. Okay, I'll buy a record and I'll go and I'll get home and I'll be like, I have that one already. Damn, I didn't even know I had it. Right?
Yeah.
But I remember those records I let go. Hey, Crystal, I'll even go, man, and I let them go cheap. I gave people
You're like, let me buy them back.
I gave them away cheap. And earlier today, I was in Napa. My son and I were in Napa, up there in wine country. And I went to a record store. That's, I was up there. I go to a record store and I seen the Clash. It's called The Story of the Clash, Volume 1, something like that. It's a double record. It's a beautiful record. It's got all their best hits and it was pristine. They were asking $45 for it. When I bought that record, Esoteric in Sacramento during the mid 1990s or late 1990s when we were living there, for a price tag, I still had the Esoteric record, $6.99. And I let it go. I probably let it go for like $20 at the record fair, like several years ago. And then now I see it for $45 and I'm like, pendejo, should have kept it, right? That's the way I look at it. Like, damn, But yeah. So do I enter record fairs anymore? Nah. No. And then so it brings me to say this. I guess I'm going to have to pass these records on. My son has been showing a lot of interest as of late in the records. And it's genuine. He's been showing interest. He's spinning. He's going to be spinning this Saturday. I'll tell you all about it. At the end of the conversation, that's when I'm going to plug what we're doing next week. But he's going to come out and he's the next generation of spinner. So it does my heart really good because I used to wonder for a while, like, what's going to happen to my records? Should I just melt them all and take them with me? That's kind of the way I am with records, and now it don't matter. And I like different genres, and I just learned to, it is what it is, and there are certain folks that they're very focused on a certain genre. or certain subgenre, sweet soul being one of them, because I know this show caters to a lot of sweet soul listeners, sweet soul record go-getters, right? And so I'll get to that. But I've always liked it. You know, I've always liked sweet soul music and those hardcore, rare, soul records that a lot of people seek and like to listen to. But my heart has always actually been on the rare soul, has always been more the Latin oldies. Like the sweeter side of Latin soul, let's say that, right? Like Hector Rivera, right? And I want to say I had the record here a bit ago. Choyo Rivera, if I'm saying his name right. Was it I Could Never Hurt You? Or
I Could Never Hurt You.
Yeah, right. And that's a cover though of Ralphie Pagan, ain't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So those types of oldies are the ones I've always naturally gravitated toward. So I just kind of go with it, and people are kind of recognizing me now more for that, because when I drop a set somewhere, usually that's what you hear out of me is that type of music.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is naturally so, because my jefito, my dad, who we've been talking about quite a bit tonight, is he is Mexicano from Chicali, but he has Cuban blood in him.
Oh, okay.
From my grandfather, who was a Cuban Mexican musician. And so that right there is the spin musically we have, so I think that's why I was always kind of fascinated with that style of music, like Joe Bataan. Joe Bataan and Ralphie Pagan, those two, to me, neck and neck are, Latin soul demigods, right? And so I know they worked together. They were what, label mates on Fania, and so that pretty much is but the sweet soul. When I started hanging out with folks like Benji, Buddha Benji, with Rita, who passed away. She was a dreamer. With some of those folks here in Northern California. When I started hanging out with them, we really, they turned me on to like some really good sweet soul records, and that's when I was really kind of getting more into, the more, like the black sweet soul records, not so much the Latin sweet soul records, but still, even so, I feel like I can carry, I can carry my own weight with some of those records. But again, that's, there's some people that, I've seen some record collections in the Bay Area. A lot of the Chicano Bay Area record collectors, they got some deep negrito, black, music, sweet soul records that'll just blow your mind, with the value of them. Some of them are, and the depth of their collections. Some of them, I can't carry a candle to most of those folks, because I could have maybe a handful of those records, whereas they can have like dozens of those records that they just, you know what I mean? But yeah, so like when it comes to the rare soul, it's more, I lean much more toward the Latin, and that's me with like artists like oh my goodness, the one comes to mind, Mantrap. This record right here, I'm pointing at. I don't know if you can see it, but they did a cover of Suavecito.
I heard it. Yeah. I just recently heard it, and that's only because, like your mom, it was probably a Saturday or Sunday. I se levanta Crystal. First thing she does, put Spotify on, and I was cleaning, I remember, and I heard it. I'm like, hold up, who is this?
Yeah, see, so that's that one right there. That's my baby right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. And can you see it?
No, bring it so everyone can see it.
Let me see. Let me see. So for the listeners, they probably can't see it, but well, I mean they won't see it, but but it's this one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful album right there, and you can see what they look like back here. And yeah, and this is not an easy record to get. This is easily will set you back. I don't know, $300-400 right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And let me show you another one. Another one of my babies right here is. These are some Chicanos out of Chicago, and this is the Mystics. That's the kind of love. I know you've heard that one, right? So
I don't know. I can't.
so
I'm sick right now.
for the ones that are
Go ahead.
listening to that one from the podcast, this is a record. It's called The Mystics. That's the kind of love. It's on TEAKO. I don't know how you pronounce it. Tico, but you can't see it. No, but
No, I'm sure you can. You'll be
yeah.
able to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's oh man, that's a beautiful. This is a beautiful, like, it's got that Latin kind of like it's got that the horns in it, the suavecito kind of feel to it, you know. Yeah, really, you know. And I would say probably one of my big Bay Area daggers I have is this is a really good one. Her name's Rhonda Davis, and Long Walk on a Short Pier. You know, this is a very difficult record to find. So yeah, long it goes. Take a long walk on a short pier. Rhonda Davis. So for you listeners, check that one out. That's, man. And I got lucky because several years ago I ran into a homie from the Bay Area that had some really good Bay Area sweet soul records, and I got hooked up for, you know. I was paying about $50 a pop. They weren't given to me, but right now those records are worth several $100s each.
Yeah.
Like that one, that Rhonda Davis record is about $700, and this one is the original Durando. Didn't I? This is a $500 record right here. This one, but I didn't buy it for $500. You know, will I buy it for? No, come on. You know, I'm the kind of person that, honestly, if you tell me you got a record for $500, and I'm like, this is the way I look at it, because I listen to a lot of new music. Okay, we haven't even talked about Soldies yet, and I love Soldies music. All the new artists, the Decent Sears, Los Yesterdays. I love all those artists. Okay, and I go, you know how many of those albums I can get for $500? You know how many Soldies records I can get for $500? This record right here is hella hard to find right now because they only made 100 of them, and I got it autographed by Joey Quiñones. Okay, this is when he was with Orquesta René as a guest, and they did a cover of "To Say I Love You."
You gotta play it for us.
Yeah, I know, right? So it's basically Orquesta René, all right, or in English, Orchestra René. To Say I Love You, and I got 2 copies, and one of them's autographed and the other one's not. And when they first came out, I kind of had vision with it. I go, this is gonna do something, and they sold out. And now people are like, man, that's the Joey Quiñones record a lot of people want, because a lot of people slept on it and didn't get it. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool, you know. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I've been getting a lot, you know. I mean, I did early on with the sweet soul stuff, you know. Once I started getting into it, about 2016, 2017 is when I really started getting into sweet soul again, from hanging out with the likes of Benji Buddha. And what we did is we took a trip down to Southern California together back there, right when we started the group, the Solistics Vinyl Club, and one of your guests, Solera 5150, we met her down there, and it was so cool. We went to a show down there, and it was I want to say that was in 2018, and we got to see Johnny Benavides, the guy that was at Garland Green, right? We got to see the Southern Soul Spinners get down with Ruben Molina, one of your other guests. Who's that guy, man? Yeah, he's written books on collecting, and Josh Whitmore, and of course, Arlene Solera 5150. They got down, and that was really cool. And she kind of, a lot of folks don't know this about the Solistics, is she kind of helped us launch ourselves by playing in LA. She done a spin with Benji at the soft opening of Hello Stranger downtown LA. Have you heard of that venue?
Yeah.
So I want to say that was when it first came out. When they first opened Hello Stranger, and so we got invited to go out there, and so that was really cool to get to do that. And I have a record I wanted to show you. So you know who Chicano Batman is, right? So Chicano Batman I guess they're about to break up, if they haven't broke up already, because this is their last shows they're doing before they break up. And I got to see them over the summer. They performed a live show in a free concert at a park in San Francisco, and that was really cool to see them. But I got to meet Bardo Martinez back in 2018 when he did some solo work, and he was at the soft opening of Hello Stranger. And so I happened to have my single with me of Bardo Martinez, right? And there's a Bad Education is the name of the song, and he autographed it. And what's a funny story about him autographing this record is he wrote me, the word me, backwards. So you have to hold it up to a mirror, and then it'll read me, like it says me. But when he first signed it, I got pissed off because I got mad because I was like, why did you do that to the record? Why didn't you just sign his autograph, right? But I googled it, and you know what? That's how he signs it. That's how he signs. Puts me backwards. So that's a trip, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know this is all more for the podcast because they can see what I'm showing you. And for the listeners, I'm showing you some cool records. Lately, too, what I've been into is having people sign my records. So when I show up to shows, and I recommend a lot of folks do this, show up with your records that you've been out there buying when you go see these artists, get them signed. You know what I mean? That's the fun part of it. That's like the reward. You know what I mean? Getting to meet the artist and then having them sign your record.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And I've been having almost all the Soldies artists that I go see, I show up with my records, have them sign them. Because one day, down the road, they're definitely going to have value, because, they're basically all the Soldies that are out now, they're going to be like the oldies of the future,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I know not only did you get into like spinning vinyl, but I also want to talk a little bit about radio, because not only do you like spin, but you're also in radio. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, how you got started with that?
Sure. And when it comes to radio, I've always wanted to be a radio DJ. And I want to say that in listening to like Art LeBeau, Wolfman Jack, Huggy Boy. I used to love listening to Huggy Boy, KRLA when I was, a young man. And I would sometimes pretend I was a DJ on the radio. And it's funny that like I would like maybe do my own little mixtape and I would be like, I don't know, make up a name or whatever, you're listening to, K, GG, what, whatever, just making up something, right? And this is going out to La Smiley from El Cricket, stuff like that. I would do that and record it on a cassette, and then I would play the oldie. And one time, my mom, when I was in high school, I did one of those fake radio cassettes, and she listened to it when she was driving, and she had, and she goes, "Mijo, that sounded really cool what you were doing," and I was like, I was all embarrassed, you know what I mean? Like,
you're like cringe.
Mom, you weren't supposed to listen to that, right? Because I was doing stuff like Tu La Snoopy from El Sapo to, I was doing that, and so she thought that was cool. I've always had a deep love and admiration for radio works. I like listening to radio shows. I would seek out really cool radio shows. There was a Radio Bilingüe I used to listen to from time to time in my travels from Southern to Northern California and vice versa. And I would listen to Radio Bilingüe, and I wish I could remember the names of some of these DJs because some of them have come and gone. And I would listen to some of these shows that were just, I thought it was cool because they would be like broadcasting from, like a remote area of like Salinas or Fresno, and it would be going to like several places at once, like live. So like if you were listening in Fresno, you could also listen in Salinas. You could always listen down in the Imperial Valley. You could listen in other states, near, I guess, neighboring states. And I thought that was cool. I think even as far as Washington. And it was all part of that Radio Bilingüe network, right? So, and it's still in effect. I want to say that one of the DJs, Henry Lozano, right? He, I believe, is still part of that network of Radio Bilingüe. And I remember listening to him when he was, years back on Radio Bilingüe. And so how I got into KDVS is there was a DJ, and this is when I was, because I was also into funk music, so I was into the soul music when I hooked up with, Benji Buddha and Rita and Soul Motion, but Soul Motion didn't come till later. He joined the group later. It wasn't he wasn't one of the original members at the time. It was Benji Buddha and Rita. It was because we were hanging out and playing records before we even came up with Solistics. So then after we came up with the group, the Solistics, that's when Soul Motion came in. He was one of your guests. I think he was one of your first guests, right? And so, him being out of Sacramento. And so on the radio, right? I met this guy. Well, he had a radio show, and it was called Cut the Groove on KDVS. And you could listen to KDVS anywhere. Like you could be down in Brawley, down by the border, and listen to kdvs.org and listen to live radio programming. You could be anywhere, LA, Texas, no matter, right? New York. We've had people calling from New York. And so, but if you happen, the cool thing about it is if you happen to be in the greater Sacramento region, which Davis is in the Sacramento region, and you're listening to regular old school radio on the dial tone, and you listen to 90.3 FM, then guess what? You can also listen to the radio show, right? And so I thought it was really cool because he had a funk show. He was doing a lot of like new funk music that sounded like 80s funk music, and he would play 80s funk music too. So just like sweet soul and soldies go hand in hand, right? Soldies sound like oldies, right? And then you can mix 70s oldies or 60s oldies if you want, even 50s oldies for that matter. But in the funk scene, there's kind of the same. You got new funk artists, right, playing music like Monica, XL Middleton, right, and records the Funk Freaks put out. And then you got the 80s funk records that sound like Rick James or sound like Prince, right? And so this guy, Chris Rockwell, he had a radio show, Cut the Groove, and he asked me to come out as a guest. And so I came out as a guest, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. Watching him work the control board and talk on the microphone and, play the records. He was playing records, and it was so cool to watch that happening. And I wanted a show. And so I kind of worked under him as an apprentice for about a good couple months, it seemed like. And then I had to take a class at UC Davis, radio broadcasting class. And I took the class, and then they cut you loose and they give you a show, and they watch you closely for like the first few seasons that you're out there, make sure you're not making big mistakes. And then after that, here I am 6 years later, almost 7 years later.
How long were you doing the radio? How long had you already been doing radio before I came on with you?
Not long, because
Really?
because when you came on, it was 2020.
Yeah.
And then they shut us down. So
Yeah.
I started in 2018. So about 2 years. Yeah. And so what was cool is you got to experience the Jack moves when they came on. And I remember in the last episode, you're talking about a pizza place.
Remember we went to that pizza joint afterwards?
Yeah,
I was like, they're just wild kids.
Yeah. So to recap last episode, when you were with Tommy from Loyalty Record Club, and you were telling him about getting to meet the Jack moves, right? And it was Woodstock Pizza.
Oh yeah, Woodstock. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Woodstock Pizza's bomb, and it's in a lot of there's a Woodstock in like San Luis Obispo or somewhere down. Yeah, I think San Luis Obispo. And the homie Matt from Raza del Sol.
Remember he was there with us too?
Yeah, Matt.
That's where I met him at.
He's one of your guests too. One of your early.
Yeah, he was one of my first ones, and I remember it was just like it's like an experience that I definitely, well, first of all, I want to thank you, because I don't think I've ever thanked you like for like asking me to like co-host with you. If I have, I want to definitely thank you again. I had already been doing like radio with a radio station in Yuba City. They asked me to hop on, but I was just sending them like my show, so I would pre-record it at home, and then I would just send it in, and then they would just play it on air. But you were my first experience actually in a like radio station, and I remember I was just like super excited. I was just like, oh, like you made one of my dreams that you want to accomplish, and definitely that was one of them. So thank you. You definitely helped me fulfill one of my goals and one of my dreams.
Welcome, and it's been a blessing, and you're easy to work with and a joy to work with. And Hector too, your biggest supporter. You have him in your corner, and that's amazing. And Gio, I got to meet Gio. But the last time I saw Gio, he was shorter than me. I think he's probably a lot taller than me now, right?
He's 6'2".
Oh my God, yeah, he's a lot taller than me.
Yeah, he's 6'2".
This is what I always say. I'm glad I was cool with him when he was a little kid.
Now he's gonna be your bodyguard. What are you talking about?
That's what I said.
He's like, don't mess with my Theo Casper.
I'm always cool with the kids. Casper's always cool with the kids. And for that reason, it's funny, whenever I see a kid who grows up and he's a big old, 6'2", 6 foot, I always say, I'm so glad I was cool to you when you were a kid.
Yeah, but it was definitely like a fun ride being there with you, and COVID happened, and then that was it.
COVID happened, and a lot of things changed, and it almost Ghost Town Radio kept going because they let me submit a couple shows just to kind of keep things going. They were playing older shows for a while, and then they had me submit a few shows, and I would record them at home, and then email. It wasn't easy though, because I'm not that tech savvy, And so I would submit it to them, and then they would air them, and it was pretty cool. But kind of helped keep the show alive. But for the most part, it was pretty difficult, and Ghost Town Radio almost folded as a result. You know, and it's funny talking about shows and the longevity of it. There's been times when I've said, I feel like, maybe this will be the last season, or maybe another season, and we'll call it. And there's always that one caller. There's always that, and I kid you not. There's always a caller that calls me when I least expect it. And for you, it might be a DM, or you meet someone even out that has watched or listened to your show, and they tell me, man, I love listening to your show. I've been listening. I had one caller once. I never had spoken to this person, and he said, I've been listening to your show from day one for 5 years now, or whatever he said at the time. And I was just, my mouth just dropped. And he goes, and I love it. I always look forward to it. I appreciate, the music you put out. And I was just like, wow, I had no idea, because the thing about it is, in social media, social media shrinks your world. You feel like, you only see those that you're on your list of friends, if that's what we want to call all of them, right? But you see the list, right? And then you think that that's all you're really getting through to, or that they hear you or see you. When in reality, when you're on a radio program, and even on this one, and you're on Spotify, Spotify is big. YouTube is even, right, bigger. So when I'm on 90.3 FM, I don't know who's listening. There could just be any random person taking a drive listening to the radio. KDVS.org, anyone can tap in on that. Anyone at any given time from anywhere on the planet. Okay? And so sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I'll look at my social media and I'll be all, they're not even listening. Right? It comes with the territory, and I'm being real. It comes with the territory. Sometimes you go, man, who's even listening? No one even likes my stuff. And I know there's people that, when there's someone that posts something and they say, oh, you know what, man, I don't post things just for the likes, and all of a sudden everyone starts liking it, like, and it's like, well, you just posted something and everyone's liking it, but you're saying you don't post things for the likes. But you see what I'm?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate that us. Maybe me and you can talk about it a little bit, because we both have gone through it, but like how you're talking about, like, really, like, very rare do we get like that feedback, right? Like, unless they call in, how you're saying, like, I don't know who's watching, I don't know who's listening, I can't see like every name that's tuned in or whatnot. And it's like, being a radio host, or me doing the interviews or the lives, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of time away from our families. Right now, as we speak, as I'm doing this interview, I have a barbecue going outside because I have family from out of town that are here right now. But it's a passion that we have, and it's a dedication and a sacrifice that we're willing to do, because we love the music that we put on every single Sunday for you guys. And it doesn't matter how much sacrifice it takes, but in those moments when we're grinding and we're doing all these sacrifices, we're human and we get discouraged too. And how Casper said, all we're seeing is what's on our feed. That's all we're seeing. And if we're not getting the feedback, sometimes we go through moments of discouragement where we're just like, man, like, all this sacrifice, all this hard work, for what? Like, is anybody even listening? Is anybody even like hearing? Or even if it's, and that's why I always tell everybody, like at the end of the day, it's the common goal that we have is just so that we can share this beautiful music, whether it's through vinyl, CD, tape, Spotify, YouTube. Who cares where it's from? But my thing is I want to continue for this music to echo into my son's ears and to my grandkids' ears. I don't want this music to die. But with that, like I said, with the hard work and dedication, we're human and we go through moments of discouragement. So if we post something, don't be afraid to just heart it.
Right?
Just heart
I
it.
know that gotcha. So yeah, no, that's the thing, and I've met a few people out there. Like I was at a gathering, okay, about a year ago. I was at a gathering, and it was other radio DJs, and we're paying respects to a radio DJ who had passed away. Papa Wheelie, he was a really great reggae DJ from KDVS, and he had been on for like over 19 years. And so I met other musicians and disc jockeys, and there was this one musician that was there, and someone introduced me to him. It was Flower Vato, who has been around for many years. And Flower Vato introduced me to this guy named Kenny Beasley, who is a musician with a band who was known for doing work with Filibuster, who worked with bands like Sublime. Okay, and so it was kind of like ska rock. Okay, and if you know Sublime, then they sounded kind of like Sublime, you know. And so Kenny Beasley, he introduced me. He says, "This is Casper from Ghost Town Radio." And Kenny looked at me and he goes, "You're Casper from Ghost Town Radio?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's me. You know, just got introduced, right?" And he's like, "Man, I listened to your show. Man, it's dope." I was like, "What the heck?" So I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I had no idea. And I've met a few folks out there like that, like just random, meetings of people that, I mean, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, Casper, yeah, your show, I love listening to it." Or, you know, it's cool. You know, I mean, it's not so much, see, I don't want any listeners to get me wrong on this. It's not for clout. It's not, it's just, you just want people to listen to the music that you're putting out there, you know, to the message, the soul cleansing, because we're back to soul, right? Soul music, and that's why I love playing soul, whether it's soldies with these new artists who are phenomenal, like Kelly Finnegan, Chris Lujan, Andre Cruz, The Sinceres, Sueños, my beautiful band Sueños, Peligro Brass, right? Polo Martinez, who has, you know, he just came out with a new group called Pana out of Sacramento. And so there's a lot of Los Yesterdays. Man, I love Los Yesterdays. So there's so many groups, right? You know, and old, new and old and everything. And I can't stress enough that just there's so much out there to listen to, and putting all that music out there like that is like my calling, right? I feel it. I feel it as my calling to share that, and it's good for the soul, right? When you listen to soul music, you know, because you could be going through certain a certain trial in your life, whether it be a failing relationship, the loss of a loved one, financial woes. You're just not where you want to be in your life. You know, things aren't going your way, right? Whatever it may be, right? And you listen to soldies or sweet soul music or Latin soul music, you know, or Mexican oldies, you know. You listen to that music and it you know, it feeds your heart, it feeds your soul. And so that's the purpose, you know. And, you know, I mean, there's collectors and spinners that do things for different reasons, and hey, whatever, you know, whatever's clever, you know. But that's why I do what I do, you know. And you just mentioned, you know, for future generations, for your son and for future grandkids to listen to. This music will be here long after we're gone. This interview we're doing right now is archived because you're putting it out there into Spotify and YouTube, and it's going up right now. This very interview, one day someone will be listening to it or watching it and going, check these people out from like 30 years ago talking about, you know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
and some of them will be taking note, some of them will be taking to heart what we're talking about, you know. And so, you know, which leads me to the record label, right? Capital City Records. That I feel is a way of how I have all these records. I'm surrounded by records, by the way. And you would like to think that, you know, you're the caretaker of all these records. Some of them are way older than even me, right? And so you want these records to live on and on and on, you know. And so I feel like I've left my mark on this planet. So when Casper checks out and he's gone, yeah, I got my, you know, my son, my daughter, my grandkids, you know, my genes are still out there, my DNA is still out there, right? I left my mark with that. But I'm talking about like me as an artist, right? Yeah. You know, leaving records on our label, you know, through Capital City Records. I feel like that has been more than anything I've ever done in my life. These records will continue to be here long after I'm gone. You know, so someone will be playing these records. And even now, like, let's say, for example, even now, like, let's say some people are like, Casper, who the hell does he think he is? This Capital City Records, and the song is okay. It's not a big deal, right? Check it out. You'll see where I'm gonna go with this. This is really cool way to think about it. This is a record I'm holding. It's called Why. It's by Peligro Brass. Beautiful record. It's a beautiful doo-wop, 100% Chicano record. Okay. And Chris Lujan and Andre Cruz. Well, Chris Lujan produced it. Andre Cruz did the backing vocals on it, and yours truly was executive producer of this record. Okay. So one thing I want to say is what kind of keeps me going is my music is something for someone out there, and what I mean by that is, have you ever heard of an artist named Rodriguez? Okay, there's a movie called Searching for Sugar Man. You got to watch it. So he's a Chicano artist. Okay, he was like a folk rock artist from Detroit. Yeah, we had Chicanos in Detroit, and he put out an album, and it was a beautiful album, and people weren't feeling it. They weren't feeling it. They're just kind of like, eh. They have a documentary on this. It's really cool. And people weren't feeling it. And the record label was like, eh, you know, and they just shelved it. They put it, you know, didn't go nowhere, right? Years later, during apartheid in South Africa, these DJs pull out this record by Rodriguez, and they fall in love with it. And now this whole country in South Africa, this anti-apartheid movement people, or basically civil rights movement, the album fueled the fire to their civil rights movement by this dude named Rodriguez, a Chicano loner from Detroit, right? He influenced many people in South Africa. You know, that was like their soundtrack to their civil rights movement, pretty much. No. So you get, you know, like how you say, an unlikely connection between Chicano and Black South Africans and people who sympathize with the Black South African movement for civil rights and equality in South Africa. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, then on another note, that's not so serious, but you get like Nigerian funk music from the 80s, which is, you listeners you tap into some Nigerian funk music, okay? You get that music that's being played in the 80s, and I mean, I don't remember hearing it in the 80s. I don't remember anybody talking about that music in the 80s. And now you get people like in Orange County, the funk freaks and all that hardcore, you know, Orange County funk movement, and they're jamming to Nigerian funk. You know what I mean? As part of, not just Nigerian funk, but they're jamming Nigerian funk music. And that's like, I mean, what an unlikely connection. You know what I'm getting? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got Nigerian funk music from the 80s. Got all these artists, they're putting out music. They didn't know that they were going to influence a bunch of Peabody, cruising Chicano from Orange County 40 years later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, okay, so, hey, for all I know, there could be some, like, I don't know, some little chinitos or something 30 years from now, and they stumble upon Capital City Records. That's where my story's going. And it'd be like, hey, check out these records I found from this dude. Some Chicano called himself Casper, and he had a little record label. And he had like Mi Chicanita, and he had Peligro Brass, and he had Sueños, Polo Martinez, and even some cool rare soul that we put on vinyl, the Willie Bollinger and the Truths Incorporated, which was our #1 release at the very beginning. This is the baby that started all for us. You never know. You never know. Someone down the road. So maybe maybe I'm not everybody's cup of tea now. You know what I mean? But I ain't tripping. Somebody's gonna be after these records at some point. Maybe
there's something for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Capital City Records has been a joy because we've had 6 releases. We're going on our 7th now.
Wow.
And I got to remember, I gave credit to Michael Heda. He started it with me. And now, Tommy Sanchez has been really helping a lot, contributing a great deal. And the work we've been doing with Sueños, with Frank Lizarga, with the whole band. I'm not only, they're not only on working with Capital City Records as a distribution label, but I'm also a band member. I don't know if I told you that.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
As a entry level, so I want some of you out there to think I'm trying to get a big head over here. I'm an entry level timbalero, and I am their official DJ. So I spin records before their set, during their breaks, intermission, and then at the end of the show, I'll spin some more records. But lately, Frank's encouraged me to pick up the sticks and play timbales, and I play the guira too. That. You know what I'm talking about? That little,
Yeah.
I should have brought it in here and played you some music, but I play that, and I've even played the tambourine. But the only thing I won't do is sing, because I am not. It take a lot of lessons for me to even be a. No, it take a lot of lessons just to get me to be a bad singer. So that's why I chose talking as a DJ rather than singing. But no, that's been awesome to be with the band Sueños too, and we got some songs that are going to be coming out as well. And right now, next week on Saturday, we have Peligro Brass. We're having a big record release party, whoop whoop, and we're doing I think I already showed everybody on the podcast the record, but show it again. But we're sold out on these right here, the ones that came with the insert and came with the sticker. I thought that was cool, to give the record buyers a little extra. But those are sold out, unfortunately, for folks buying them. But we just got the regular paper sleeve record now for $10, and we're gonna have a whole bunch of those at the record release party on November 16th. And we're gonna be at a place called Two River Cider, and we got Andre Cruz and Chris Lujan coming, and they're gonna do an acoustic set. They're gonna actually perform "Why" with Sam Miranda, the band leader for Peligro Brass. He also is the frontman for Soul Peligro, because Peligro Brass actually is a band, that's spin-off band off Soul Peligro, the bigger band. that's been around longer for over 20 years. And then we have my cousin Vinny, who's a really good DJ. And maybe in season 2 you need to get my cousin Vinny in here. My cousin Vinny does like crazy cumbia, like that. It's like dance hall cumbia, and club music. He's a really good club DJ. He DJs all over, like out of state,
Wow.
Portland, Vegas, LA, the Bay. He travels quite a bit. He's getting bigger and bigger, and he loves Capital City Records and everything we're doing with the local bands in Sacramento. And he is going to be there performing. We got spinners. I was telling you, I think I told you about my son.
Yeah, your son.
He's going to spin under the moniker Mr. Organic with a K, because he's all about organics. He has his own garden. He grows his own vegetables and fruits,
Nice.
stuff like that. And so he's into that. So Mr. Organic suits him right. We have Selector Gonzo. We have DJ Lee. We have Loyalty Record Club. And we have Albert Rosales, who's an old school veterano who used to be a very, very dear friend of Rita from La Dreamer from the Solistics Vinyl Club. And he spins a lot of those really cool old school Chicano oldies, the lowrider ones, So we got a little bit of something for everybody. It's a free event, Saturday, November 16th, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. We're gonna have a taquero out there, and all ages. We got it's gonna be cool. We'll have adult beverages for the adults, and it'll be a nice family friendly environment. So that's what's going on, to promote the record, and just to vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just thinking about everything you've been talking about, how much you started off, being influenced by your father's, love for music, and then, how you mentioned your uncle was also a musician, right? Like they're Colombian?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather, wow, your grandfather.
He was a Cuban Mexican musician, based out of Mexico City. And
Yeah.
that's where I think a lot of my the term in Spanish, la sangre llama, or llama.
Yeah.
And so him, because I never got to meet him. So it's interesting that I always gravitated toward, that type of like Cuban, Puerto Rican, like Caribe.
Yeah.
El Caribe, Caribbean, Latin flavor naturally. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's in the blood. Can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't. What do you do? It's in the blood. It's in your makeup. It's in your DNA.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't escape it, and it's inevitable. It's gonna come out some way.
Exactly.
That's so dope. I love everything that you shared about. So much knowledge, so much experience behind you, and he is not kidding when he says he has. I mean, you have to share one day all your record collection, because it's like if you can literally have your own store. That's how much.
Well, that's the thing, like now I've learned ever since I found that tough lesson about trying to purge my collection and get rid of certain genres.
You're like, no more.
And now when you do see me at a record fair and I am selling records, because in case someone says, wait a minute, I've seen him at a record fair selling records. Those weren't my records. So what I do now is I'll buy a collection, right? Yeah. And I already got a lot of those records. A lot of them are very, like they're like classic 90s R&B records, 80s records that, just stuff that's easy to come by, right? And I put together some boxes of those records, and because I'll take out the ones if I buy a collection, I'll take out the ones I want, right? If I see some records and I'm like, oh my God, the Royal Jesters, oh, the Midnighters, oh, that ain't going nowhere, right?
Yeah.
put them away. And then the other ones, I'll go, nah, I can part with these, no problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I'll go ahead and go to a record fair, and then I'll push those records out. You know what I mean? So that's, if people have seen me as of late at a record fair, selling them, it's usually because, well, no, it is because of that. Because I just acquired a collection.
I wanted to talk real quick about, I know you were talking about Peligro Brass. I know you guys were just here in
City
SoCal.
Records, even though it's based out of the Sacramento region, and Peligro Brass / Soul Peligro, because Sam Miranda's group, let's just say that, right? Sam's group. Here's Sam right here. Here's a picture of Sam for the podcasters. I don't know if you can see it, but there you go. Well, he's my brother. So, okay, so we both acknowledged to each other that, because, me being Capital City Records and then him being the band leader for Peligro Brass, we had a conversation, and we were like, most of our records that we sell at Capital City Records, I want to say, and wholeheartedly, 7 out of 10 records have always been shipped to Southern California, whether it be LA County, Inland Empire, Orange County, San Diego. Most of our clientele at Capital City Records is coming to us from Southern California, right? And so he was saying the same thing, like, I don't know what it is about, same thing. We're getting a lot of love from LA and, Southern California. And here's the thing. This is the way I look at it. And I don't think it's like, I don't take it personal. I think what it is because I lived in Southern California, so I know, that's the thing. Some people up here have never been or don't really know what it's like to be down there. And so when you're in LA, for example, okay, you got to remember this. There's only one market on the planet that's a larger Mexican market, not Mexican American, one larger Mexican market than LA on the planet, and that's Mexico City. Okay, outside of Mexico City, right? LA has the #1 market for Mexicanos.
Yeah. More
than Guadalajara, more than Monterrey, right? More than anywhere, because there are more Mexicans living in LA County than anywhere else other than Mexico City. There's you drive around LA County, and that's just LA County. I'm not even saying Ventura County, Riverside County, you know what I mean? San Bernardino County, Orange County, and then don't even, we had San Diego County and the Imperial Valley, forget it, right? Nothing but raza everywhere, right? So it is naturally a bigger market. They're naturally more inclined to dig on us because we play cumbia music on, we play cumbia music was where's it at? I was just holding it. Well, I put it away, but I had oh no, here it is. This is a beautiful cumbia, all right? This is super rare to get. We only made like 75 of these. This is Peligro Brass, and they did a cover of Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood. The da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And this is they ate this up in Southern California.
Yeah.
Ate it up,
Yeah.
And okay, so when we talked about that, we talked about all the love we get SoCal, right? And so we wanted to, when we did the record, and this is kind of funny, but not funny, but it's funny because I'm not an LA Dodger fan, but congratulations to the LA Dodgers for winning the World Series. I know a lot of Mexican Americans are happy about that, and I'm cool with it. But we did the record in Dodger Blue, okay? And because Sam is an outspoken Dodger fan, and so I did it as a gift to Sam. I go, Sam, we'll do it in Dodger Blue for you, right? And to pay homage to the LA and the Southland for being such staunch supporters of what we do. at Capital City Records. So, we did it in Dodger Blue, and so I think what was really kind of cool about that is then the Dodgers go and win the World Series in the same year that this record comes out. Ain't that cool? But yeah, so
cool.
So with that said, we also wanted to come to Southern California and do the record release there, the initial record release. And so we hooked up with Angel Baby, right? And Angel Baby, man, God bless him. He was so hospitable. He hooked us up with Two Souls on Fire, the radio program on the internet, and that was amazing because they gave us the place to be able to set up and sell the records and promote them, and they did us with a nice radio interview and everything, and then Angel Baby was there, and he gave us a beautiful plug on his Instagram, and we got to meet Mike Noriega from Noriega Records. He hooked us up with, he bought a bunch of our records, and I don't know if he still has them at his store, but then we went to Penrose Records and they bought records. So we got so much love when we were down there in Southern California. We want to go back, and likely after the holidays, we're going to take a trip back down to Riverside, because Riverside has something special going on right now. That for sure, I know. With DJ Cazell and IMG Group, or Industry Music Group, with what they just opened up the Soldies Lounge. That is a place I want to visit still. There's a picture of Peligro Brass. He has all the Soldies artists, a lot of artists on this collage of photos at the Soldies Lounge. And Peligro Brass is on there, on that collage. And we find it very, very flattering. And we're very honored that he did that, that DJ Cazell did that. So yeah, we get mad love, respect, and everything from everyone down there in Southern California. So, we feel right at home going down there. And some people that now that are listening are probably realizing too that I'm probably not as well. Some of them don't realize that I actually lived in SoCal for as many years as I did.
Yeah.
So that's and I didn't mention that when I lived in Sacramento for a very brief period in the late 90s, we ended up moving, my ex-wife and I, we ended up moving the kids to Visalia. And that's where I raised my kids, was in Visalia. And when we lived in Visalia, we were only a couple of hours north of LA. And so we were many times, many memories.
Traveling back and forth.
Yeah, in Southern California, yeah. So culturally, I always kept that connection.
Yeah.
We were always running down to Southern California for many different reasons. And a lot of it had to do with, me out there driving records, always.
Yeah. That's so dope. So you guys did over here in SoCal, you have this event coming up in NorCal November 16th, correct?
Yep, Sacramento.
That's so dope. Anything outside of that you have coming up that you want to kind of plug in real quick?
Well, just to look out for Sueños. Sueños is the next thing coming out. We have a beautiful singer named Jessica Vargas who is going to shock the Soldies world when we come out with the next single on Capital City Records in association with Israfel Records. It's I want to say, and I wish I would have wrote this down. Frank's going to get mad at me. But the single is going to be, I know South of Love Street is one of the songs on there. And I can't remember the name of the other song, so I'm going to get in trouble for it. But
no, don't.
We got a single coming out. Yeah, another one coming out.
That's exciting.
Yes. And so she's the featured vocalist on both tracks, on side A and side B, that we're working on in the studio right now. And so that one right there is one to look out for in the future. So yeah.
Definitely.
Sueños. And then Peligro Brass is working on a song right now in the studio with Chris Lujan and it's one of those songs that sound like Los Bukis, like it's a really cool bolero,
Yeah, yeah.
nice sad Mexican oldie style song. Um, and that one doesn't have a name yet that I'm aware of, but they're working on it, and so that one is going to be also released on Capital City Records, coming soon.
Well, a lot coming up, a lot coming out.
Yes, and what else? Just like I said, with Tommy, he's a great addition to the team, and he'll be a lot more involved in those releases coming out as well. So people will not only see me behind those releases, but they'll see Tommy along. He's the future. He's quite a bit younger than I am. So my hopes is that I continue to kind of work with them, and then cash out, and then go retire somewhere in like where could I retire? Florida.
Florida.
That's puro pedo.
Wow. Yeah, definitely.
I know. No, but I'm just talking papas. But you know what? Tommy's great. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah, he is a great guy.
And, yeah. So we got a lot of stuff, planned ahead. As far as Ghost Town Radio, we'll see. Let's see how that goes. Sometimes, like I said, we were talking earlier, I get a little restless at times, and I'm thinking, maybe it's time to hang it up. But then I get those calls from those certain listeners that keep inspiring me. So what happens? And if anything at all, the only thing that I am notorious for, and I do, like I advise people to not be afraid to do it, is to reinvent myself. So don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Anyone, in whatever it is you're doing. Okay. So you may see me retire Ghost Town Radio at some point, but then you'll see another show come up, maybe with another estilo, other type of music, something different, something fresh,
Yeah.
Very possible,
Yeah. And I think that's what keeps you fresh, young, and motivated, that you don't just being stagnant isn't healthy, like just staying like, it's always good to like move the waters, do different things. It keeps you fresh, it keeps you sharp. And I feel the same, like for a long time I did just like the shows. Now I'm on with the podcast. I still do the shows, but now I'm doing something different. It's a challenge, and it keeps me sharp. So it's good. It's a good thing.
Yes. Oh yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
You gotta be willing to reinvent yourself.
Any last words to anybody tuning in? Any advice? Anything that you want to share before we end?
Yes. The one thing that I want to share with someone who's new in collecting records. All right. So let's say, you're just getting into collecting records. You're going to see people out there, like I just showed you some records that were, some of them were worth some big bucks. Not that I paid that much for them, but that's neither here nor there. But if it's easy to get intimidated in this, in this world of collecting records and spinning records and whatnot. It's easy to get intimidated by people, and there's people that like to intimidate others. Okay, so there's little bullies, like in anything else, that are like, hey, look at me, these are all originals, no reissues. Okay, I get it. But the thing is I would like to tell the new collector, and my advice would be, let's just say this is a soldies person, right? Or a soul. We're gonna stick with this, right, genre. So you're a young soul music lover. So my advice to you is go out and collect all the soldies artists. You can buy them for hella cheap. The Sinceres, Los Yesterdays, the Altons, Mariah Avila, you know what I mean? Like so many, Jason Joshua, Sueños, Peligro Brass, all the new artists. Scoop them up, hit them all, buy them. And then treat yourself to the nice classics too. You know what I mean? The nice classics that, they're not that expensive, a few dollars, a record of 45, like Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, okay? They're everywhere. You can get those there anywhere. Build up the collection, so you have a lot of different records to listen to. With all the new oldies, that aren't that expensive. You listen to all those classics, they're not that expensive. Treat yourself to a nice record that's 50 to $100 maybe once every other month. You know what I mean? And that's kind of my thought. Like splurge on yourself. Get one that's like, ooh, this one right here. This one's, and then put it in your little collection. And then before you know it, you'll have like several of those, right? And then you'll still have those other ones that you're buying on. You're keeping up on the new releases and whatnot. And then you can never go wrong with the classics. Never. That's kind of my thought on it. Like, because when you go to a party and if you're spinning for like, like your neighborhood friends and family, what have you, and you want to spin some records, because that usually comes with the territory. Can't go wrong with the classics. Billy Stewart, Mary Wells. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear those. Everybody. That's what's going to get the party going.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the party going with the rares, really. Unless you're just playing with,
Unless you're playing at Crystal's house.
right. Or you're at a party and that's kind of what it's about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're talking about like, come on, like your neighbors. You know what I mean? Your everyday gente. You know what I mean? They want to hear the classics. They want to hear the stuff they relate to when they were young, and or reminds them of their dad or their mom or their uncle. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or their youth. The classics can never go wrong with the classics, right? And then the new stuff, the soldies. The soldies are right now they're fire. Duran Jones, The Indications, all those. Aaron Frazier's got two solo LPs now. Mayor Hawthorne. There's a lot. We can go on and on. There's a lot of great artists that are putting out great music today. Trish Toledo, I like her music too. A lot of good artists. A lot of good artists out there. And so that's my advice to the collectors. It's easy to get overwhelmed or intimidated by but no, just do it in steps. And before you know, you might end up getting your hands. You might get lucky. I've gotten lucky. That's the thing. I've gotten lucky, and you run into the right people at the right time, and next thing you know, you have a bunch of records on your lap that are worth a lot of money, but you didn't pay a lot of money for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very proud of you and what you're doing with, Barrio Love Oldies and the Spotify and the YouTube, and now you can see each other with the on the platform you're on.
That was your idea. You're like, Crystal, you got to take it to that next level. You got to. Oh wait, I don't know if I'm ready. Remember?
You are. I thank you, and again, and your whole family network, because you have them behind you, and that's a blessing right there in itself. So and I wish you all the best, and I hope that you continue to grow, and the show it's important because even me, I've always looked for Chicano podcasts, Chicana podcast, anything that's relevant to the culture, the furtherment of our movement, and that's what people. One more bit of advice I want to give is to many people: don't be narrow-minded, and don't look down on someone that's narrow-minded. Or I'm sorry, don't look down on someone who's into something that's maybe you're not into, right? Musically, artistically, what have you. Okay, there's room for everybody. So when I mention that, what I'm trying to say is, if you're a Chicano or a Chicana and you like listening to The Cure, all right, Smiths, Depeche Mode, and don't let others try to discourage you from listening to that music or make you feel like you're not as Chicano or as Chicana as they are for not listening to just what they listen to or what they are into or how they dress and express themselves. And you know what I mean? So hey, I'm Chicano 100%. No one can take that away from me, whether I'm listening to country music, right? I'm eating a sandwich instead of a burrito. You know what I mean? Whatever. Whether I'm hanging in a suburb or whether I'm in an inner city barrio, you ain't taking it. You ain't discrediting me. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't let nobody take that from you. That's yours. That's in here. That's in your blood. That's who we are. That's who you are. So be you. And what happens is if you don't allow others to keep you from exploring and growing, then you'll come up with something new artistically that will later be embraced, by the cultura. So that can mean that could be in anything from like drawing, painting, poetry, a lot of different things, acting, so don't limit yourself and don't let others try to limit you and categorize you in this little tiny box, because we are much bigger than that.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those beautiful words. I think it's so true. I find inspiration in everything. I know my heart is with soul, but also you will find me venture off to a lot of different genres.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of inspiration behind that, so definitely explore. Don't let anybody take that away from you just because you listen to different genres, because it can truly be an inspiration to open you up to a lot of creativity. So I can agree with you on that. Casper, I want to thank you so much for an amazing interview. I know it's our last episode for this season. We didn't even get to talk about that, but just if you guys are already watching it, it's our last season. It's our first season. We're ending it with this amazing interview with Casper. I couldn't find anybody else better than to end it with somebody that inspired me very early on in my career. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. It's because he's like my big brother, guys. Sometimes when I need that like little encouragement, like, are you sure I'm doing the right thing? Can you listen to this interview? Can you tell me? Just because I appreciate your feedback that much. So thank you so much for ending this season with me. And I'm truly grateful for you. I'm super excited for you and all your new ventures, everything that you have coming up. I definitely have to catch one of your shows with Sueños. So thank you again. And where can people find you? I know you're on Instagram. Are you on Facebook? You're on Facebook as well, right?
Well, Facebook, I normally, that's it's my name, my government name, Manuel Meza, Meza Barrios. And then so it's Manuel Meza Barrios. Okay. And then but Facebook is more like, it's mostly stuff from Instagram that will spill over onto Facebook.
Yeah.
But Instagram is the one I'm most active on nowadays. And Casper _ KDVS. Underscore KDVS. And then Capital City Records is capital.city.records. That's our Instagram. And that's Tommy runs it. But that's where you'll find, what's happening with us.
All the updates.
So Capital City Records is also on Bandcamp. So just all you got to do is type in on Google Capital City Records Bandcamp, and you'll see what we got. We got records for you, So come see us, and we'll try to hook you up with what you're looking for. Some good records. We're a Chicano record label, so support the cultura. That's what we're about. Keep it alive.
For sure. Yes.
So
Well, Casper, thank you so much again. That does conclude episode number 20 and season 1. We will be coming out with season 2 early 2025. We're thinking about either January or February. So stay tuned for that. We have a lot of interviews coming up. So thank you guys so much for all your continuous love and support here on the Barrio Love OD podcast. And we end it with none other than Casper from Ghost Town Radio, KDVS, Capital City Records. And we will definitely catch you on the next one.